Hey, you got some different camera angles. All right. Nice. All right. Hello, and welcome to episode 47 of Webflail. Now, this one's a little bit different because I'm in Barcelona. I'm here with Dylan Harrocks, who is the guest, and he is the founder of Nexus Creative. And I actually met Dylan for the first time a few weeks ago, and we went for drinks, and we went to a comedy club, to a night out. So he's the first guest that I've had on that is actually, I've gone on a night out with before doing an interview with. So quite a unique situation here. And he has become, well, I'd say he's on the way to becoming quite a prolific Webflow in the space. He's been tweeting a lot more. He's been a lot more active in the community recently. And he has a subscription-based agency called Nexus Creative, which has been flying high, as we're about to find out. But has it always been this way? The failures that we're going to talk about today are over-outsourcing, changing processes for clients, and being too hard on himself. Dylan, welcome to Webflow.
Thank you so much, Jack. I'd just like to say it's a big honor for me to be on here. Been listening to you for a long time. And I just hope that I can give some of the value that I've received from it back with my failures and lessons I've learned.
Cool. Yeah, no, I think it's quite a weird situation when someone's been listening to Webflow for quite a long time. They know the gist. You've sent me a serious Notion doc full of notes, so we've got a lot to get into today. But for anyone that doesn't know you and is like, who the hell is this Dylan guy wearing this beautiful shirt? What's your story and how did you get into Webflow?
Yeah, so I was actually born in Portugal. I've only lived in England for a few months, even though I've got a very English accent. I grew up in Spain. I was a bit of a mischief in school, so ended up floating about doing a lot of graphic design, freelancing. I used to make intros on YouTube for other YouTubers.
Which I will link.
No, don't link that. That's not being linked. And yeah, so then growing up in Spain, I did some bar work and on the side of freelancing. Then I moved over to Newcastle, which you've also lived there for a few months, and then COVID happened, and that's when I started my agency. And it was a bit after starting my agency, which was just doing every single service out there that I found Webflow. And now, as you know, I'm just focused on Webflow, which is my love.
Final love.
My final love.
And it's interesting that you've gone from graphic design, you've been doing a bit of email marketing, you've kind of like tried out all sorts of stuff, and now you've settled on the subscription-based agency model. Tell me a little bit about that. I know we're going to dig into this and the failures in a little bit, but just give us a flavor of how you came across like even offering subscription-based agency as a service.
Yeah, so the subscription side of it, I think we've all heard about Brett from Design Joy. I saw some shout out to Brett. I saw some posts that he put all over the Facebook groups saying how it's been working out so well for him. At first, I looked at the website. I was like, this doesn't make sense. What do you mean unlimited? How is it unlimited? There can't be a limit. How can you work on so many clients? And then the more I started thinking about it, the more I looked into it, it just made more and more sense for me. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most profitable setup there is, but it just feels, for me at least, my mental health is so much better by having stability, knowing exactly what I'm offering. There's no more of those stressful sales calls or sales pipelines. So that's what really drew me into it. And since I've pivoted into that, it's been fantastic. So I'm excited to get into that as well when we go into the failures.
Yeah, I definitely think that if anyone's listening and is like freelancing, kind of, you might have a good month, you might have a terrible month. I think subscription-based pricing is something that a lot of people in the Webflow space are talking about and interested in. And there seems to be more and more people either focusing on that as a direction or potentially looking into products or things that, kind of leverage the Webflow audience that they might have built up, which I think is quite interesting. So
for sure,
we will get into that though. And I'm interested in you as a bit of a digital nomad as well, because I think a lot of Webflowers in the space are a bit like, I can live and work from anywhere, but how do I go about doing that? And you have lived in different places. Can you tell us a little bit about you being a Webflower that's kind of travelled and worked in different places as well?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't always been easy. There's been times where, I've not made much money, especially at the beginning of the career, where I needed to have second jobs. So that would happen a lot. I worked for nightclubs, I worked for bars. I've done, freelancing in old part-time jobs where I'm helping with more design jobs and not so much Webflow. But then it just got to a point a couple of years ago where I was able to sustain myself from what I was making in Webflow and through my agency. There was obviously some really high highs and some really low lows, which got really scary, but I always managed to pull through. And then once you have that base, it's so much easier to travel. And you yourself, you're traveling a lot now, and places are a lot cheaper than if you're living in the UK or the States. You could actually live on a lot less in somewhere more tropical. You go to Bali, for example, the rent will be £200-300 a month, and you can have a good life. So don't feel like you're stuck where you're living. I think it's important to know that there's always options to move around, and it gets so much easier as we're working more digitally.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to say, though, that unless you have a little bit of momentum with your business or your freelancing, living and working abroad is quite stressful. Like, you might be in paradise but have no money, and then you might as well be back with your parents paying no rent for a little bit just while you work things out. So, which
isn't the worst thing.
No.
That can happen.
Yeah.
And it's just at least you have those experiences and you know what to do better next time. We learn from our failures, I guess.
That is the whole point.
Oh, yes.
No, but I think it's just important to say, because some people are like, right, I'm going to Bali or whatever, and they get there and they're just like struggling to get clients, and they're trying to enjoy the lifestyle side of it, but also trying to do the work. And actually, the combination of trying to make friends and see places and whatever is actually quite hard to deal with all at the same time.
That's true. That's very true, actually, especially for me. I've got ADHD, which we're going to be talking about that, but it can be so hard to have really good routines when you're on the move and experiencing new places. You just want to go out and make friends and do new things. But if you don't have those routines, you'll end up just doing maybe some client work, but you won't work on your business, which is what gets you more client work. So you are right. There needs to be a bit of balance there, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it is amazing, just to be clear. Like, if you are a Webflow that's got your feet under the table a little bit, and you've got some regular income, I definitely recommend it. But to preface by saying that some people that are listening might not necessarily have a thriving freelancer business yet. Important, the word yet there. You can if you want to. Anyway, something that I also wanted to ask you about is that you highlighted it there. You are possibly one of the most interesting kind of career path people to Webflow, with your background in nightclubs. Now, I think one big thing that's not really talked about in the Webflow space is your ability to sell websites, because you might be the best developer in the world, but unless you can talk to people and actually convince people that the value that you're offering is worth paying, then it's very hard to get clients. Now, I'll let you tell the story, because you've worked in nightclubs on the door, and I just think that's a really interesting part of your career.
Yeah. So I actually used to be quite shy. I was a hyper person, but I'd also at the same time, didn't know what to say to people. So then I had a job from when I was 18 years old working at nightclubs. I lied about my age, said I was older just to get the job. And my job there was just to get people in the clubs in Marbella, the south of Spain. So it's a very much in the summer, a lot of people go visit, they party a lot. And my job was to sell tables essentially to drunk people, and to get them to get the big booths in the club. And so I learned so much from working there, and I don't regret it at all. It was there's a little bit of judgment of having jobs like that, but I think that they're so wrong. I've learned how to sell. I've learned how to connect with people, how to make friends. I used to work 14 to 16 hours a day, so I learned some good work ethic, and that was some of the best years of my life were there, and I've learned. I'm past that now, but it was definitely a really good experience.
And important to learn how to connect with people, and maybe the importance of networking as well. You seem to be pushing quite a lot with Twitter,
Hmm.
connecting with other people. I mean, we connected over Twitter, and that's obviously how we're here now. Is that like an influence as to how you're running your business and how you're thinking about networking generally?
Yeah, I think for sure. I mean, with Marbella, what happens is there's a lot of people that are very wealthy and they go very regularly. So you need to build trust with those people. You need to make connections. You need to make friends. And if you give them a good time, a good service, they will always come back. And I've always understood that. So it's been really important to me. I mean, maybe I pushed this too far even to always make sure the client's really happy with the work I do to really look after. Because I just think every time I've been able to serve a client and push the best quality and make sure that they're happy with the service, I've always come back either with more work or I've had referrals from that. So I think that's what networking isn't only about, like, okay, who can I meet that can give me good opportunities? It's more about who can I meet and help out in some sort of way. So I message people on Twitter to either give them help and tips and give them value as much as I want to get from them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to say as well with networking. It's like, what I found is it's less about what you can get from someone, but more about how can you help whoever get from wherever they want to go to wherever they're trying to get to.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you can help people do that, then naturally, like, the law of reciprocation kind of comes into play. But it's not necessarily like, I want to, pay you money. It's more like, you have a problem and I can potentially help you or connect you with someone or whatever. It doesn't need to be anything more complicated than that. Let's get into your failures now, because I think these are fascinating, and I just want to dive straight in. Over outsourcing. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, okay. So before I go into this, I think it's important to talk about the origin of Nexus Creative. So Nexus, the meaning of Nexus is linking two or more things. And what I'd found is I'd be hired for work, let's say it's graphic design, for example. Let's say, I was trying to get into a meeting and trying to close a job. That would usually I'd be able to close it at a much higher rate if I had experience in whatever they're doing. So maybe it was, for example, a bar wanted me to do some work for them because I understood the bar industry. It was much easier to close that. So what I was and I also saw a fault in agencies was that if you're a client and you go to work with an agency, they would tend to, you'd only be able to work with their roster that they have in-house, their talent that they have in-house, and they wouldn't have specialists for you. So what I wanted to build was a virtual agency where we had, no employees, just a big network of freelancers. And then if a client came in and they wanted something specific, let's say someone worked in the education sector and they wanted to have really colorful branding and a calligraphy logo, instead of having to just work with one of our graphic designers, I'd have the perfect person for you. I'd look for that person, and it would essentially just connect you to the right person, and we'd be the point of contact to get it done. And another bonus I saw with this is that there was minimal overhead. We were just paying for the talent there. Sounds good in theory, but it was just seen as an outsourcing agency, as if we were just, outsourcing to cheaper countries and then making massive margins. So that was a failure in itself. But in that process, I managed to hire a lot of freelancers, have a lot of interviews, and it went wrong a lot of times. Lots of sleepless nights, lots of holidays ruined. Really, honestly. And I had bridges burnt with clients. So I feel like I've learned a lot in that space. And I just want to preface this as well. It is really great to outsource. There is really great stuff that can come from that. For example, I hired Ethan Swearer, which you've had on your podcast before, and he was the reason I learned about Webflow. So you can learn a lot from people when you hire them. But what would also happen is a lot of people messed up. They overpromised, said they could do too much. I trusted them, said they could deliver it in X timeline. They couldn't. And so I think if you are ever going to hire someone, you in the interview process, be thorough. Don't trust everything that everyone says. Just look at their testimonials I've had. You can even call the testimonials and ask them if it's true, experience. I've made websites for clients and they've asked me to just put fake testimonials, and people do fake testimonials. One of the things I do is while I'm interviewing them, I ask them a question I don't think they'll know, in the hope that they'll say, I don't know how to do that, but this is maybe how I'll figure it out. If they do know, then fair enough. It's probably a great hire anyway. But what I found is a lot of people don't say no. They're worried about saying, no, I don't know how to do it. And then it doesn't open a safe space for them to ask questions. So it's always a red flag if there isn't a lot of questions being asked. I think another important thing to do is, I've gone blank for a second. What's my notes?
While you're thinking of that, I think it's important to say that, so when you outsource, maybe one thing that it sounds like maybe your clients didn't understand that you were outsourcing in the way that you were.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something that is important to say, that if you are going to be outsourcing, it's just important that it's clear with the client that maybe that relationship.
That's what I wanted to say as well. Huh?
Have the mic out.
No, we're not talking now, are we?
Oh, yeah.
Are we?
Are we not?
Oh, I thought it was cutting when you were saying it was important to. Okay, my bad.
Oh,
Sorry. Okay. Let me regroup. Fuck, where was I? Okay. I want to check my notes. Sorry, man.
No, it's okay.
We can cut this, right?
No, I want to just recap on what you just said. So,
okay.
You started Nexus Creative thinking, I'm going to pinpoint the perfect freelancer for the perfect client. And so instead of having an agency with hires, what you did is you basically contracted the perfect freelancer for the perfect job, thinking, I'm going to make my client so happy. But the client didn't understand that that's how you were operating in the way that maybe you expected them to. And then it also sounds like the perfect hire, or the perfect contractor, wasn't actually the perfect contractor in the end. And you needed to have a clearer process for hiring, and one that assured that they had the quality that they said they have. I've definitely been guilty of this in the past, though, where I've been a freelancer who's been so keen to impress and so like, I'm just going to make it work. I really want to make it happen, that I've overpromised and underdelivered. So would your advice be for freelancers that, maybe are trying to learn as much as they can and trying to get an agency job, to just be straight up honest about what they can do and what they can't do, but maybe what they're trying to learn? Or how do you think they should be approaching that?
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I think some of the things I look out for, like we were saying before, was I want to make sure that they're asking the right questions and they're happy to say, I don't know the answer to that, but would also answer, but this is how I'd work it out. I think it might be this. I think we might have to connect it this way, but I'm not 100% sure. Make sure that you're asking deeper questions instead of saying yes. It makes sense. I think the other thing, like I said, check on testimonials, check on previous work, make the effort. Then as an agency, if you're ever hiring, whatever deadline they give you, always add a buffer. Now, if it's a buffer for design, and they say, 1 month to do design, I'd always say 1.5 months. If it's for development can usually take a bit longer because so many things can go wrong. Whereas design, there's not so much that usually goes wrong. So I double the time that they say. And if clients are being really pushy about shortening deadlines, and then you pass that on to the freelancer, it's not going to make a difference. The freelancer will say yes, sometimes it'll do it sooner, but they won't. And that's happened a lot. Then once you've hired them, there's also, as an agency, you have to make sure that you keep a safe space, have an open space for them to say that they're messing up, they don't know how to do something. Because what's happened to me is we've had a deadline, it's going to be in a month, and it was just 3 days before that the freelancer said, okay, sorry, we can't do this. Don't know how to do it. And then it doesn't give us much room to save the project. So always make sure that you're checking in, seeing the progress of the work, and opening up a safe space for them to come and ask for help.
Yeah, I think this, like, honesty when you're being like totally transparent is actually, it sounds kind of strange to be like, hey, straight up, I can't do this, but I'm trying to learn, but I can't promise you that I can do this, and I recommend hiring someone else or getting someone else to do it for now. It sounds like you're a bit of a failure as a freelancer who says that I can't do that or whatever. But actually, that is the most important thing that I've learned so far, is just being upfront with what you can do and what you can't do, because there's been times when I've said, I can do this, and I just can't. And I think I'll work it out. YouTube doesn't have a video for it or whatever. And it's such a mistake to overpromise and underdeliver. It's way better just to be upfront about things you can't do, I've found.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for an agency owner, it's better to hear early doors that you are not capable to do the thing you're being asked to do than
Yet.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. And I've hired people just because they've said they can't do stuff. And I've done that in the past because to me, it shows there has to be honesty there. And, there's a lot on the line for an agency hiring someone. There's a reputation, so it's important to safeguard that. I've hired freelancers that have, maybe had less quality than another one. Maybe if I was interviewing two, but I've just gone for the person that I felt like would be honest if anything was going wrong, and had the motivation to figure out how to fix a certain problem.
Yeah, and also someone that's honest from the get-go is going to be trustworthy to work with in the long term. Like if they don't necessarily know the answer now, you want to keep working with someone who's keen to learn, keen to grow, keen to develop, and they're going to be a good hire in the long run. Maybe like you'll see the potential of someone to work with that's honest. And
Yeah,
keen to work.
But even me now, when I speak to my clients, and there's something called the anti-sell. It's like when you give an offer that's too good to be true, that's what everyone thinks. It's like, okay, this sounds really good, but what's wrong with it? If you go forward and you're just saying, listen, well, this probably won't work this way. You probably won't get these conversion rates with what you're expecting, but I know that we can work as hard as we can towards it. And just having that honesty has got me so many more clients. So I think it's applicable to both freelancers and agencies that are looking to hire, looking to get work.
So anti-sell is basically saying, hey, we can't do that, we can't do this, but here's what we can do, rather than just bullshitting the client, or if you're a freelancer that's trying to get a job who's just like, yeah, I can do that. Instead, you're just like really upfront and honest, and then as a result, this person's like, okay, I can trust this person. That when they say they can do something, they can actually deliver, and when they say they can't, I know where I stand.
Exactly. This is really important because when clients are looking to hire someone, they're not usually looking for the best quality. They're looking for the safest option. They're looking for someone. They're looking for someone that they can trust will deliver their work. Especially as you get bigger and bigger clients, they've got stakeholders that are above them, so they need to look good in front of them. And messing up for them means could be terrible for their career. So it's about getting the safest option for them.
I feel like I just need to recap because there's a lot of gold dust here. So, one, if you're going to outsource as an agency owner, make sure that it's very clear with the clients that that's the arrangement and they know where they stand and what they're doing. Two, if you're going to hire people as someone that is an agency owner, make sure that you do your homework and don't just take their word for it. Ask them questions, check the testimonials on their website. If they say they've worked for another agency, maybe you check in with that agency owner and see what their experience is, etc., etc. Three, if you're a freelancer who's trying to get a job with an agency owner, don't bullshit them. Tell them what you can do, tell them what you can't do. I wish I did this earlier, and it is really hard to do, to say, hey, I'm not strong in this area, but it really, really makes a difference. And frankly, you're more likely to get the job as a result of that, ironically, as well. And then also, the last thing that you talked about was the anti-sell, which I think is so powerful and not talked about enough. Again, you don't need to say, yes, I can do everything and more for you, client, please hire me. Actually, by saying, look, you want 20% conversion rate within the first 6 months of the website being redesigned, that's going to be hard to do, or whatever it is. Expressing that what they're asking for is a lot, but here's what you can do instead, or here's more likely the outcome that's going to happen if you two work together. Again, you may well be more likely to get the client as well. Is there anything I missed?
No, that was all the points. There's one more thing I'd like to add. So when I was doing this, Nexus Creative offered every service under the sun, every digital service, from branding, websites. We did motion graphics. We wanted to get into SEO, pay-per-click. What would happen is if I'd hire people that I didn't know, say, for example, I'd want to hire an app developer. I know nothing about app development. Say something goes wrong, I have no idea I can do it myself. So what I've learned now is if you are going to hire someone, don't do it too far away from your skill set. And if it is too far from your skill set, then be transparent with the client. I think it's really important to, a lot of the time the client will be happy with that. Say, listen, this isn't my expertise to do app development, but I know someone that can do it. We can bring them into the conversation, and I'll be happy to oversee it and be the communication between them. And I think that saves your reputation. If anything goes wrong, it's on them, and you're still able to, have a bit of make some profit from being a person in between. But the mistake I made is just bringing people on, sort of seeming as if they're part of my team, and then they've messed up, and it ruins my reputation. So that's really important.
So one thing that you just mentioned there as well is offering everything under the sun. And I mean, now you're very much more specific about what you offer.
Yeah, well, because it's so weird. Logically, you think, okay, the more services I have, the more clients I can get, and the more I can cross-sell, and it's going to be a better agency. But the less services I offer, the better I do. The more clients I get, the more money I make. So it's a bit hard to get your head around. But if you're an agency that offers a lot of services, it's different if we're talking about massive agencies that have 200-300 employees. That's a whole different ballpark because they've got whole teams dedicated to that. But if you're, one-man band or agency of less than 5-10 people, just stick to what you know, get really good at that, and then start adding services slowly.
Okay, tell me about failure number 2, changing processes for clients.
Yeah, so as we were just talking about now, offered every service at the beginning, and it was really difficult to have processes because each service, each deliverable has different things you have to go through. So what would happen is the freelancer that I'd hire would create their own processes. Then the client would want to have their input of how it should be done, their processes. So every single project was different, and I had no flow, no SOPs, as you'd call it. SOPs means standard operating procedures. So what would happen is you'd think that make sense and make the client a bit happier to, they can choose the way that we work, the way we communicate, maybe the cadence of the deliverables. But it'd actually create a really bad engagement for both sides, because let's say that this is just a small example, but let's say you usually communicate on Slack. They ask you, okay, can we communicate on Microsoft Teams? You say, yes, I want to make the client happy. What would happen then is that, I didn't check Microsoft Teams because I'm usually on Slack. That'd create a bottleneck. That'd make that client unhappy. That'd make you unhappy because you managed to miss that. It's important to stick to what you do. The more rules that you have, the happier the clients will be with your work, because it's just a tried and tested process that keeps getting refined. And it's become easier and easier for me, and especially now that I have the productized business model where it's a subscription. I don't have calls with clients. I have the initial call to get them in through the door. And then after that, all communication is done through Slack or my own portal that I have where they can add the tasks. Outside of that, they're not allowed to have calls. I tell them that from ahead. Of course, if there's times that they need some advice and there's a big pivot that they're doing in the business and they'd like to bring me into the conversation, I'm not going to say, no, I won't talk to you. I do still talk to the client there. But there's been times, for example, I told you this story actually. I had a client, he didn't know anything about web design, web development. He had some money that an investor gave him. They wanted to make this raffle website where each person would put 20 euros to get a raffle ticket, and then you'd be able to buy a villa. Sounds really great. He called me 5 times a day and then just he asked my advice on something. I'd give my advice and he wouldn't take it, and called me again to see why I wouldn't agree with his advice. And it'd be the same thing ongoing. And I didn't set those boundaries at the beginning. So then when I was saying, now listen, I can't take calls all the time, you have to book meetings with me, he'd get upset. I'd get upset, and it would just ruin the reputation. Anyway, at the end of the day, he never paid me for the work, and had to get debt collectors on him, and I never got the money back. But I think these are lessons that you have to take. And so now, strict processes, all the clients are happy. If anyone wants to step out the process, it's usually a red flag, and it would disrupt the whole flow, the whole ecosystem that I have. So someone trying to break that process will actually affect all my other subscribers. So I'm very strict now, and it's been much better.
I think this idea of having quite strict processes sounds kind of limiting, but actually it just streamlines everything. And I wish I knew this earlier. I think part of the problem as well, that maybe you can attest to, I'm not sure, is if you have all sorts of random clients that you get with different projects, and as a result, different deliverables needed, then naturally the processes need to change slightly for every client. And that is so difficult to manage. So I think maybe a step before having your systems and processes in place, I'm not sure if this is fair, but you have a quite clear idea of the types of websites that you actually service for people. And then as a result, your systems and processes can be in line with that. I'm not sure if that's your experience, but.
No, yeah, 100%. And then I think it's Blair Enns that said this, but more variables equals more outcomes. So the more things that you're changing, the client means that you can't control exactly how it's going to look at the end, and that can break down. So I think spend a weekend and just talk. There's a Miro.com is really great. You could do flowcharts and sitemaps and stuff. Just every deliverable that you have, every sort of touch point you have with the client, you should put your flow on there to see, if you offer like UI UX design, talk about how that whole project's going to look when you have calls with them, when you show work, if you're doing weekly updates, and then just create these operating procedures for everything, and then try to never step out of it. Obviously, that's a perfect world. There is times that clients have different needs, and then just charge more for that. That's how you do it, and then you'll see a lot of them will end up sticking to your processes.
Interesting, yeah. And I think this idea of having quite strict processes seems a bit like draconian, right? Like, you must obey my rules. But actually, it's better for you and it's better for the client, because sometimes I think clients are a little bit like little kids, like running around a toy shop, like, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? And actually, it doesn't necessarily help their business goals if they're kind of going all over the place as well. I'm not sure if this is fair, but
no, that's a really great point. What happens is that if you don't set the rules, the clients feel like they have to. So there's times that, for example, I didn't used to give updates on a regular basis when I was doing a Webflow project. I would do it at the end and then say, this is the website. What I've realized is that when you do that, they feel like it's their duty to check in and to see how the website's doing. They get worried. If you over communicate, which is what I try to do now, every 3 to 5 days, I give an update on where the project's at. They don't feel like it's their duty to check. So when you're setting rules and saying, this is the way we communicate, this is the way that we do things, and this is how we deliver it, they don't feel the responsibility or the burden to make sure things are going streamlined. They will put all the trust in you, making them feel less stress and build more trust in what you're doing.
Oh, I wish I had these conversations earlier. Honestly, guys, I wish I did Webflail from the get-go.
Same.
Check in every few days, and the more you communicate with your client about the process of how the project's going, the less they will get worried, more they'll trust you, and actually you're kind of training your client to do things at a certain cadence as well. Sometimes you might need them to provide the copy or whatever, and unless that is kind of scoped out at the start, it can be kind of hard to get that. So really second that from Dylan. Tell me about failure number 3, being too hard on yourself.
Yeah, so this is pretty big actually. So I've only recently been diagnosed with ADHD, and I've got quite strong ADHD. I think you've noticed it from me, and it's made a lot of sense. It's changed my world actually. It's made a lot of things make sense, and I had a lot of self-esteem issues because of it, mainly with work-wise. So what would happen would be I'd see all these people that are really successful. They're doing so many things. They're running multiple businesses. They're constantly working within their business, because it was really easy for me to work on client work because I had to do it. It was a responsibility I had to take. It's really important to me to deliver top-notch work. But then when it was for myself, I wouldn't do it. So if I'd ever have a period where I didn't have any client work to do, that's when I should be working on Excess Creative. But then I wouldn't want to work because I'd be unfocused. This is due to the ADHD. And because I didn't work, I'd feel really bad about it. Because I felt really bad, I didn't want to work. And it was a constant spiral of just feeling sorry for myself and being in a rut and comparing myself to all these super successful Webflowers out there that only show their good side, or agency owners. And it was, there was dark times there where I just felt like I was useless and I was never going to do well because I was so unfocused. And now what I've learned is so many people lie about how well they're doing, and you have to have routines. That's, at least for me, have a routine. I now spend 4 hours a day on working on Nexus, and then about 5 hours a day working on client work. And I put that in my calendar, a time block. Some people prefer to have to-do lists. And if you're ever having a bad day, just take the day off. I know it sounds easy in what it is. Just take the day off, work on Saturday instead, work on Sunday. It can sometimes be really hard if you're feeling low already to just keep making yourself do it, and you're not going to do that much work if you're having a bad day. So go for a walk and don't be hard on yourself, and it'll always work out.
And I guess from the point of view of coming back to what you said, when you have like responsibilities and you have to get the work out the door, but then not focusing on the business. I think it's interesting, this idea of in the business versus on the business, and kind of the short-term gains of maybe working in the business, doing work for other people, like client work. They're not actually focusing on kind of the long-term plan of where you want to go as a business owner and stuff. That must have been quite hard, especially with ADHD in the mix, feeling low, beating yourself up.
Yeah.
How did you cope with it apart from all routines? Or what else did you do?
Well, honestly, it was pivoting. It was actually going to the subscription model. It was I felt like I didn't really know what Nexus was after I decided to, because what happened was I'd had this virtual agency set up, Nexus Creative, what it was at the beginning, as I described, I just worked freelancers. I moved over to just Webflow design and development for a little bit. And then even then, I didn't really know how to market what I'm doing. I didn't really know when you say work in the business, what does that even mean? Like on the business, I mean, sorry. Like how does that, what do I do to do that? To do some social posts on Instagram. So it felt like, okay, I don't really know what to do. So I'm not going to spend time trying to figure it out and just get client work. I was lucky to just get referrals to grow up. But now that I've pivoted and I have this subscription model, it's really easy to do marketing, like having a specific offer. Like a lot of people relate here. When you don't, it happen like this. A client would come in through the door. How much do you charge? I don't know. Depends what you have, what we want to do. Okay, well, I want a 5-page website. Oh, but it depends a little bit more because of this and that. And it'd be, you can't market to people very easily, at least in my experience, unless you already know what exactly they need. But since I was pivoting now and I know what my offer is, I know what type of clients want to work with me, it's been a lot easier to target people and to know how I can work on my business. I do a lot of outreach. That's got me so many clients. I recommend it to anyone, email outreach. And we can talk about that actually if you think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at your website now. I mean, you have the pricing actually at the bottom of the website, so you pick a plan. And I think this is an interesting point, that when you have a very, very clear offer, you know how to market because you know who you're trying to attract. If you don't know who you're trying to work with as a Webflower, which frankly has been me for the last couple of years, it's very, very hard to know even how to do marketing, because you're like, well, I don't really know who I'm even trying to attract, so I don't know where the people that I'm trying to attract are, so I don't know what to spend my time doing. And this is kind of knock-on effect, whereas now you've got this subscription-based business, you know exactly who you're trying to target, and it all just seems to make sense for your lifestyle. And also with ADHD, it's like, I know exactly who I'm doing this for, I know what I'm meant to be doing with my time.
Yeah,
it all just sounds like you kind of got this feng shui.
yeah.
I don't know if that's the right term.
I think it's feng. Yeah, no, because that isn't feng shui like where you place furniture in your house.
Okay, well, that's it. But I mean, it just sounds like you've got a kind of virtuous cycle of like, you know how to market, you know the work you're doing because you know exactly who you're trying to do the work for, you're doing the work for them, they're happy, you're happy, you've got your systems and processes in place. It all just sounds like you've got it together now.
It's amazing, actually. I've like the happiest I've ever been in my life now. Recently moved to Barcelona, as you know, here, and having this set up, I know what I can do when I get into the office. And I think that's maybe what's helped me not being so hard on myself, is I know that I'm doing something that's helping. I'm not trying to speed through it. it's a long-term plan here, not rushing into. A lot of people go into it, so I need to make money in the next year, and I need to grow really quickly. So yeah, I think like it's also really great what you were saying about having the prices online. And I don't really have sales calls anymore. People jump on the call just to get to know me. They already know how much I charge. So that's been a lot of stress gets taken away from there.
There's no sell. It's just like, this is what I do.
This is what I do.
Are you interested?
Do you want me or not?
Yeah.
Because before it would be a process of, okay, first I'd have to have maybe 2 calls to understand exactly what the client wants. Then I'd have to like stress about the proposal. How much do I charge? Oh, I undercharged. Oh, I overcharged and I lost them. And that was a pretty stressful time as well. And then if I'd lose a client, I'd beat myself up about it. So yeah, I think that's helped a lot with it. Just that things are having like a more streamlined, and I know what I'm doing.
And a clear routine as well.
Clear routine.
So tell me a little bit about email outreach, because you started saying that has been a big part of getting clients. Once you knew who you were trying to market to, you knew what your offer was, then you reached out by email. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, exactly. It was yeah, so that was exactly it. It was, I started looking at what type of companies would want to work with me, because the subscription it's not the cheapest. So it's usually bigger clients that maybe have between 10 and 100 employees. And I just did a UK market for now. I reached out to companies, mainly like SaaS companies that they care about like their web presence, and it makes sense for them to have a high converting web page. And then there's a whole process with outreach. I'm just going to break it down really quickly. There's so many detectors now on Gmail and Outlook that will like put you straight in spam if you send a lot of emails at one time from the same mailbox. So you have to set up different domains with redirects to your main website. You then spend some time warming them up. There's tools like Instantly, which essentially use AI to send your email back and forward from your mailboxes. This increases your reputation. Then you would get a list of the companies that you want to contact. So for me, it was like medium-sized companies in the UK that spent money on paid ads. I would then just contact them saying, hey, I used a tool. I'd be transparent. I'd actually say to them, hey, I used a tool to get your email. I hope you don't mind the cold outreach. But anyway, I just wanted to offer you our services. If you'd like to discuss about it, let's jump on a call. And from a small list of 300 emails that I gathered, I managed to get 4 clients, which is pretty big because they're all still subscribed to me. So the return on investment's been huge there.
Okay, so how do you gather 300 people? If anyone listening is like, yeah, this all makes sense, but what? So you just go on Google and type in medium-sized businesses UK? Like, well, how does that process happen?
Yeah, so there's a few tricks that you can use here. There's prospecting tools out there, like Apollo is one. I've not used it myself, but you can essentially say what type of businesses you want, how many employees you want, and then what type of role you want to get. I recommend to just go for head of marketing when you're going for Webflowers. It's usually the bigger size companies. It's a marketing division that's looking after the website, not the CTO. That's a mistake a lot of people do. They go for the CTO, but that's not usually the website unless it's like a SaaS company that's actually got technology on the website. Anyway, so Apollo's one. You can use tools in conjunction with LinkedIn Premium. So you could say, okay, like you could do the same type of filtering, and then there's extensions. I think one's called Snovio, and you could say, okay, get me all the emails of the people in this list. I hired my friend Sean, if you're listening. Shout out to Sean. He actually, I got a list of domains in the UK that I wanted him to contact. So he'd actually go, and this is more about quality now than quantity. So you just go on every single page, look at the about page, look for the person, look for them on LinkedIn, and then use hunter.io, I think it is, to get the email of that specific person, put that in a list. So there's a few different ways. You do have to be a bit creative here. I'm not going to give you all the juicy secrets, but it is about, you have to use tools and then try to find the right people. And when you do this cold outreach, don't send long emails. I get them all the time, super long emails. They pretend to be personal. I know they're cold outreach. If you can add a personalization, it really makes a difference.
Wow. Okay. So essentially, once you've got a clear idea of who you're trying to work with, and you've got a website that shows your positioning and has a very, very clear offering, only at that stage do you then potentially do cold emails. And like you said, I mean, you're reaching out to 300 people. Probably most of them aren't replying. And then of the few that do reply and actually want to have a call, then you're going to get on a call and maybe half of those actually turn into clients.
Yeah,
so
spot on.
It is a very, I mean, it's time consuming, and you do need to test the waters with email outreach. I think it's something that actually I don't know that many Webflowers that do cold outreach like you've just described. It sounds like quite an in-depth process. How did you actually learn about this?
Ebook, a free ebook that someone was, I can't remember his name now, but he actually offers the services for agencies. And one of his lead magnets was by offering a free ebook. And then he said, if you don't want to do this lengthy process, I'll do it for you.
And you're like,
Nope, you're not taking my money. That's not happening.
Well, shout out this unknown guy.
Lovely guy, but
Interesting
myself.
That's how you've approached getting clients, though, and obviously now you've got those 4 clients and they are paying a subscription.
They've recommended me to more.
They've recommended you to more.
So then
you've
it's become
got a kind of referral engine from the happy clients that you've got.
Yeah. Another strategy that's really good, I haven't implemented this myself, but is to do very like targeted, it has to be super targeted outreach. So say, for example, you want to target plumbers in the UK. You don't have to niche your whole agency to be towards plumbers in the UK. Just have a really good landing page that talks about their pain points that they have in that industry. You don't need the whole agency to be that niche. So once you've got this landing page that says, okay, we're going to get you more local clients. We understand that you want maybe an online booking system because you're a plumber, whatever it might be. If you can show some examples of work that's relevant to them, that's really great. Some testimonials of maybe other companies that are in that industry, that helps a lot. And then when you do this outreach, just contact other plumbers. So maybe UK plumbers, and within the email say, hey, I see that you're a plumber in the UK. We actually help most plumbers in the UK. I don't know why I chose plumbers in this example. I feel like I've said plumbers a lot of times now as well. But yeah, just if you could do hyper targeted, that is always going to work a lot better. That's going to be a lot more specific.
So you've set up multiple different landing pages for various different niches.
No, that's what I should do.
Oh, okay.
That's what I should do, and I know it'll work a lot better, and it is in the works. I'm just actually a bit busy at the moment, and I don't want more work in a way.
If you've got, just to understand your business, then I mean, 4 clients
From that,
paying $2,000 plus a month.
$3,000, yeah.
$3,000 a month.
Yeah, from just the outreach, and then I've got more that have come from referrals or from just direct connections. And then and another tip actually here is, now this is a good way to do it. Not that I've done it either, but you could create these landing pages and connect them to a CMS. So then you could have the whole landing page the same, but just change the keyword, which could be who you're targeting. So you could have, 100 CMS items. One would be plumbers, accountants, and so on. And you say, oh, I help accountants. Look at this, how we do it. And then that landing page could be just specific to that industry. I know there's someone in Germany, a friend of mine, that did it that way, and it worked really well for him.
So he's got one domain.
Yep.
So
let's say nexuscreative.com, and then it would be nexuscreative.com/expertise/plumbing.
Right.
So the collection is expertise. You only have one variable field, which is the keyword. If you want to do a little bit better, you could have like a multi-reference field of case studies, if you want to show specific case studies and specific reviews. And then that just becomes a lot more targeted without having to make the effort of duplicating a landing page and keep refining it that way.
So he's got one page, which then has multiple different CMS landing pages that he's sending paid traffic to.
Paid traffic, that really works. That's like, it's good to do that. Make sure when you're doing this to add a no index tag, so it doesn't rank on Google, because what will happen is you have keyword cannibalization. which means that your own pages are going to compete with each other. There's going to be a lot of duplicated content. Google doesn't like that. So it works well for paid ads, but where it works really well for as well is these outreach campaigns, because you could say, let's say you're a plumber, you probably haven't received too many emails from web designers. And then you're saying, oh, we're a web design agency that helps plumbers get more clients. You're going to think, oh my God, that's perfect. I'm a plumber. That's going to work so well for me. And that's where the conversion rate increases a lot.
Something that you seem to talk a lot more about than other Webflows that I've had on this podcast is you're thinking very strategically about how the value that you're providing for people. And I saw a tweet the other day that you did where you said to Webflow, you just put, Webflow, stop trying to sell UI, UX design, and actually say that the value that you're providing is, business-related outcomes, i.e. increased conversion or whatever it is, depending on the person that you're talking to. Because I think a lot of the time in the Webflow space, we're in this bubble where we're talking about parallax effect and GSAP and
good old GSAP.
Good old GSAP, or where can I get a slick slide or whatever it is, and actually your clients don't really care about that stuff as much as Webflows generally do, because that's kind of what we're paid to do. But actually, we're paid to provide business-related outcomes. So talking more about that seems to be something that you're a big proponent of.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a mix of Chris Doe and Blair Enns that taught me about value-based pricing, and this is what I offered before. This is the setup I had before the subscription model, and through that process, it taught me to first understand the metrics that the clients care about. Understand, okay, what KPIs do we want to improve here? Do we want to generate more leads, do more sales online, whatever it might be? And whatever your audience that you're going for is, let's say plumbers, they're going to care about more client bookings, or maybe they care about having bigger projects instead of just doing a local houses. They want to do massive offices. So just make sure that you understand what the needs of those clients are, and then talk about that. Don't talk about how pretty you can make the website. They can see that from examples of work. You just need to show it's business at the end of the day. It's business people. They care about the bottom line, how you're going to improve that. It's rare that they care about, how pretty it looks.
It's
Business.
But I do really resonate with that, because a lot of the time, people will do their portfolio and they'll say something like, I make Webflow websites that are unique for every single client I work with or something. And
world class.
Yeah, world class, attention to detail.
Client first.
Yeah, I use client first. Client doesn't know what that is. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, and that was, I think that still is me on my client side. I don't really know. But what I'm trying to say is that I think at the time when you're making your portfolio, just make sure to use Dylan's words that you're talking about business. Well, no, just trying to think more about the client's metrics for success, so that you actually have a website that really shows off the value you can provide to that particular group of people.
Spot on, 100%.
Good, I'm glad. I don't want to butcher what you've said, but Blair and Christo, if anyone else wants to hear more about that, Chris has actually interviewed Blair Enns on the Future channel, which I sincerely recommend. It's very, very interesting. Dylan, we're coming to the end of the interview.
It's been a great interview, hasn't it?
It has been really interesting.
I've really enjoyed it.
A lot more nuts and boltsy than other interviews, but it's been a lot of value for people that are starting out in their Webflow career, I should have said, sorry. Now, we've got a far more difficult question for you to end the interview on.
I know the question.
You do?
Yeah.
You thought about it?
Of course.
Okay.
I've heard your podcast enough times to know.
Okay, well, let me ask it anyway.
Go and ask, please.
Okay. Are you ready for the final question?
Oh, what could it be?
What is your next failure going to be?
Yeah, I think having too many balls in the air. I get too excited about different projects. I've already got, different businesses that I'm trying to set up, and I really need to focus on what's working and what does well. So I think that's going to be my next failure is just trying too many things at the same time.
Can you give us a flavour of what else you're trying to work work on apart from Nexus Creative?
Yeah, so if you couldn't tell, I know a little bit about email outreach. So I was going to do Nexus Outreach, and that's in the works at the moment. At the moment, I'm only offering it for current clients of our subscription, just because I don't want to grow it all too big and spread myself thin. The other thing is an AI SaaS tool that helps personalize email outreach, and that's in the works at the moment. So I've realized that by doing that, I am already feeling a bit more overwhelmed. So now I want to slow down with everything. I still want to focus on Nexus Creative. This is, my baby, and it's always going to be number one priority. But I can feel myself being pulled by exciting new projects.
Yeah, I think this is something I'm noticing more and more in the Webflow space. There's more and more people developing products and kind of thinking, "Ooh, client work's great, but how can I, potentially pivot a little bit to, more of an entrepreneurial business setup?" So intrigued to see where that goes. We'll have you on Webflow next year when you've failed at that.
Lovely. Nice. Nice.
Sorry, it's only because I know you that I'm saying this. If anyone's watching, being like, "Why is Jack acting like this?"
He's always like this. He's super mean.
Horrible human being.
No, not at all.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say to anyone watching that might be like, "Dylan, I want to ask you about this," or "I want to know more about this"? Is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Yeah, well, you feel free to message me on Twitter. It's Dylan J Harrocks. I just started it recently, but I'm trying to give all the micro lessons that I've been learning throughout, the last few years, and as I'm learning more. So feel free to DM me. I'm always loving to meet other Webflowers. If you're ever in Barcelona, definitely get in contact.
Bingo. 8th of June. If anyone is around, actually, this is going to come out after maybe. But anyway, 8th of June, we'll see you there. Actually, you're not going to be here, are you?
I'm not. I'm going Wales.
Well, I'm going to see you guys. I'm not even living in Barcelona for that much longer, but I'll be there. So,
FaceTime me.
Yeah, we'll FaceTime when you're at festival as well. But Dylan, thank you so much for coming on the Webflow podcast. You've been an excellent guest.
Thank you. It's been an honor.